haters observe and not to support, to discourage. Vision so passionate it's disturbing. Creative rise, I was positive surging. Cosmic folks, the emergence. Brain of eternal, hands on my time. Impossible prince, can God watch you step in the mind. Soul triggers, power, holy divine righteousness. Combined with courage, love of essence. Don't let trauma bind and block your blessings. When you behind the veil, you hear the confession. Give you limitation, corruption, fear, deception. This the age of knowing, evolution and resurrection. Welcome back to another episode of Talk That Crap. Today we're gonna have a great conversation today. I'm joined by my big bro and Ham, Big Sigma Uno, and we here to drop this thing on y'all today. I think y'all gonna love this conversation that we're gonna have today. How you doing today, bro?
Doing all right. How you doing?
Man, everything is well. It's a big Thursday, man, and you know, I've been waiting all week for this.
You and me both. Let's do it.
I've been excited about this, and so many things have just been coming to me as far as to how to approach this, how to look at it, what questions to ask, and just the mode to be in. So it's just been a beautiful thing, man. It truly has.
That's
so,
okay.
Yeah,
ready.
Ready. So look, we're gonna jump right into it. We ain't gonna play with them because we're here to do what we do. And today we're gonna start off by first talking about dysfunctional choices. Now, when I'm talking about dysfunctional choices, I'm talking about the ability that you are deciding to do something in life, but you don't even know that it's dysfunctional. You may have habits in life that you may not know is dysfunctional. You may have thought process in your life that you may not know that's dysfunctional. Yet you wake up every day and you make those choices to think that way, to act that way, to feel that way, to actually allow limitation to be placed upon your life where you believe that there's no way that you can come out. So with all that being said, I wrote a couple of questions down. How does one become aware of their dysfunctional choices?
I think the awareness comes from the choosing when you choose your own path. We grow up and we are taught specific things, and 9 times out of 10 we're taught based on the things that someone else knows and where we are basically. So when we are stuck in that mind frame, we believe that the things that we're doing are right and true based on what somebody else does. The minute that we come out of that idea and begin to make choices for ourselves, then we'll be in this place where we realize not everything that we were taught was the thing. And no offense to the people that taught us, they were in a specific situation. But the minute that we take hold of our own life and start that deep dive, and we realize that the things that we're dealing with or the things we've been dealing with is dysfunctional, we begin to make those specific changes. And for instance, for me, the beginning for me was the meditation piece. I was always afraid that meditation had something to do with devil worship, and because I was trained in religion, that those type of things were sacrilegious. So meditating, reading other books out of the Bible, all those things were what they called dysfunction. So when I started reading outside of the book, and my first meditation was completely liberating. It was like, wait a minute, I should have been doing the whole time. So waking up from that sleep, because again, everything was coming from the outside, and I believed I was being trained perfectly from the outside, and it was soaking in, but that's the wrong thing. It was me deep diving on the inside and waking up and realizing, hey, I need to spend more time with myself, or understanding myself, understanding who I am.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And the meditation was definitely a way for me to reveal where my dysfunction was, not so much as, why it happened. I understood why because I was experiencing the why,
Right,
the anger,
right,
the frustration, the setbacks, all of the things that I claim to be normal. And I used to
right,
tell my daughter years ago that they have made dysfunction a normalcy and normalcy a dysfunction.
right,
Because when you
right.
change from the dysfunction and you become to get into your own self, as you said earlier, when you do that, now they look at you, man, you changed. Man,
There
who
you
you think
go.
you is? What's wrong with you? What
Right,
happened? Because I made a change in my life and I didn't stick to the same dysfunction that I understand now that I had to liberate myself from.
right,
No,
right,
that's crazy for you to stay in the same dysfunction.
right,
That
right.
that's that is out of this world. And the dysfunction, the dysfunction affects the soul and the spirit. That's
Telling
why
you.
that's why they have it in such a systematic state.
Right.
And I'm
I
looking down
believe
at
it.
my notes and things that I wrote
No,
down.
you're
So
good.
that's
No,
why
you're
y'all see
good.
me looking down. That's why I'm
No,
looking
you're right.
down.
You're
Yeah.
right. You're absolutely right. I believe the same thing because it's all the things that we're living on based on that. Before we come out of the function is just a byproduct of our environment, and that's it. And nine times out of ten, they want you to continue to believe in that same manner, and then you can't help yourself or you can't help anybody else around you. And everybody's actually dying together. The when I started understanding more about spiritual life, then I realized death is further from me than what I believed because most foremost part of thoughts in my mind were death and how to get away from death or how to dodge death or how to survive from day to day. So the idea of surviving dissipated when I realized I had more control over how my life, what my life expectancy was from day to day. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I agree 100%. That's the way it is.
And Donnelly chiming in, he said, so many thrive in a dysfunctional world. It is normal to them, and we know how to change. We know how change feels when we are comfortable in what you know. Yeah,
Yeah,
agreed. That's
yeah,
why the
I agree too.
dysfunction is such a place of comfortability. Because
Right,
again, it's in our music, it's in our TV shows, it's in our society, it's at our jobs, it's in
right,
all our social engagements. Like everywhere
right,
you go, we were cultivated in dysfunction. That's why to come back to self is so pivotal.
right.
That's why
Exactly.
to know thyself is greater than the dysfunction.
Right. It is. And then you start to feel like feeling that the things that were important to you before actually doesn't really mean anything because it was based on you hinging your life on everything else around you. I was saying this the other day, actually last night. I was talking to my wife about this. When you get to a place to where you realize that life is so much more than what you thought it was, you start reaching for a different level. You start reaching for different levels and you start reaching for other places. So being living in the big city that I was living in, sometimes I thought that was the only place and there was no way out of it. You know what I'm saying? So to rise out of that mind frame was to want to be far away from the things that I knew were not good for me. And then you want to pull and reach and grab other people and say, hey, it's not life ain't like this. This is not the way it's supposed to be. Not realizing sometimes that they're not ready, or when it's time for them, that they'll grab the nuggets that you dropped and go with it. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it was I have 9 brothers and sisters, and we've gone through so much hell that when the minute I determined, hey, I'm rising out of this, and this is the way I did it. I wanted to share it with everybody to change the dysfunction in their mind, but they weren't ready. And later on down the line, they were when they reached and grabbed whatever they did for their awakening. But it makes a conversation harder when everybody around you continue to see people around you suffer. And the responsibility of that of yourself versus the responsibility for a community of people is hard because it's your heart is in your you realize your heart was sown to that place. You know what I'm saying? So ripping yourself away from that, it's painful because you're watching everybody around that you're leaving behind still there and still struggling. And we talked about this extensively last night. Um, it's there's things that you do that even in your dysfunction are notes and signs that, hey, life ain't the way it actually supposed to be. Just like people that you meet and that people that tell you, hey, there's something about you. You're different from everybody else. And you wonder what it means, but you just kind of keep going. You know what I'm saying? And then you got people that are like, hey, I just want to give you this opportunity because you seem like the type of person that can get this and it'll change your life. And then it goes through one ear and out the other. But those things that you begin to remember, hey, people were saying this about me, and I didn't even pick up on it. And now that I have and I can, then I can change my whole world changes. And I say this a lot. I say people are each individual person is their own world, and depending on the person and depending on what they've experienced and what they've learned, their world their world is either in elevation or it's and it's dark and dismal. So the for me, elevation is every word that I begin to say, or the times that I tried to manifest before, and understanding what the secret is, and all the rest of this stuff. What I thought the secret was, that fail all my words that failed before, they begin to take life, and it's the good things. And mind you, it's work, especially when you're toggling between the worlds and the world's your new horizon and the things that you still feel like you're responsible to do. You see what I'm saying? But the difference is you're not doing them in dysfunction. You're doing them with a clear mind, and you're understanding, hey, this is the way I need to move because this is what'll work. And at the same time, it's not just feeding people. It's feeding people and then giving them, helping them receive some type of life from it. Now, this is what you're getting. Now, take a bit of a close look a bit of a closer look at it. The greatest thing that I saw was one of my brothers determined that he was not going to fail. When he determined he wasn't going to fail, he did literally everything in his power to make sure that that didn't happen. That meant walking from California to Texas and hitchhiking along the way until he made it to have this conversation on a radio show for someone, to get his message across. And that was, for me, that was determination. So I'm like, this dude is determined. Where does he get this from? And not that my determination wasn't any better or the same. It was just that I saw it in action, and it made me question, hey, am I willing to go that far to make sure that the dysfunction of my mind completely dissipates? That means leaving people behind. That means pushing people off that you know that are dragging you down. That means examining your surroundings and making sure the people all around you are on the same page or are thinking in the same mind frame. You see what I'm saying? So when that happens, then you know that the place where you are is thriving. And then there's the portion that says, okay, there's things that are happening around me. Maybe I've instituted that I need to let go of. You know what I'm saying? So when you begin to let go of some of those things, then that was the reason why elevation wasn't happening. I always use the analogy, taking the weight off your shoes. Otherwise, if you don't take the weight off your shoes, you're not gonna rise like a hot air balloon. Um, so that's the kind of the basis of what I understand about leaving, or transitioning from dysfunction to an elevated place, or positive and more powerful thinking.
Does it bother you to see those you love may have certain forms of dysfunction that may cause self-destruction to themselves, whether it's emotionally, spiritually, or even yet physically?
Yeah, it does, and that's one thing I had to deal with myself because my whole thing was my heart was attached to them. And so if my
Hmm.
heart's attached to you and you're drowning, to find every way possible to make sure you don't drown. But the thing that I had to remember is when I became a Mason, they gave us this cable tow, and the cable tow is a certain length, and they said, "This is your cable tow that wraps around your body. When you pull it out to use to support someone, it's only a certain length. So if you're leaning over, if you're in a boat and somebody is in the water, you throw that cable tow out. There's only so much. There's only so much leave you can give them. If they're out further than your cable tow, then you can't go any further than that. Otherwise, you're going to get pulled in the water. So I had to kind of begin to consider that. Hey, I can't help if I can't help, I just got to let it go and hope that they can swim back to shore or swim to the boat. You know what I'm saying? And that's also giving the person the benefit of the doubt. Do you have the
Mm-hmm.
mind frame, the wherewithal to get to where you need to at least get into the get into the line, get into the length, get into this it's somewhat in proximity of my cable tow. So if you get closer to my cable tow, you can grab it. I can pull you in. Otherwise, if I lean over, we both in the water. So those are the things. It does hurt to watch them go through what they're going through. It even hurts to even hear them talk about it. But the only thing I can do is talk to them about helping them get to a place that helps them, and that is a huge part of peer counseling. Peer counseling the same way. We can't tell them how to figure out their problem. we have to talk to them until they hear the problem for themselves, and then we have to keep talking to them until they come up with a solution for their own problem. We can't give them a solution. The solution has to come from them. You see what I'm saying? But it does hurt to watch and sit and watch them go through those things. It does. It's painful.
It used to be very painful to me to see
Right.
those that I care about, friends,
Mhm.
family, siblings, anything you want to call it. It used to bother me at one time until I had to
Right.
understand, hey man, you gonna get weighed down because that
That's it.
ain't that ain't what they doing. You know what I
That's
mean?
it. Exactly.
That ain't
Exactly.
what they doing right now.
Right.
So
Right. Right.
it
Right.
was understanding that just because you have a certain level of knowledge and understanding, don't mean that everybody else wanted it at that particular time.
No.
And
No.
so
No. It doesn't.
if I'm seeing somebody drown and I throw you the life raft and you rather fight the water, okay, all right. I just
That's why
told
you
you
got
the
to.
raft.
Right.
I just
Right.
I just what's the old saying? There was an old story. Somebody died on a roof and in the flood,
There you go.
and
Right.
they was praying to God, and then they sent them three times. One came in a boat, one came in a helicopter, the other one came in something else. And when he got to heaven, he
Yeah.
asked God, "Why you ain't come and say, man, I sent three people out there to come
I
get
said
you?"
I said a
So
Jeep, but a
you
dude in
know
a
what I mean?
Jeep.
So
I said a
so
boat. I said a helicopter.
there you go,
But you
a
were still
Jeep
waiting for
over.
me
There
to
you go. I knew it was something. I know. I remember that
right.
story because it was crazy. I was like, damn.
Right.
So I really do. I live by that. I
Right.
live by the understanding that if I see someone hurt and I have the opportunity to help them, I'm gonna reach out and I'm gonna help them. Now, once I
Right.
reach out and help you, and I see that you'd rather be in that same dysfunction, I'm not
Ain't
gonna
nothing
reach
I
out
can
no more
do.
and do anything because I
Right.
don't got two, three, and four times for you to decide whether you want to do it. When
No.
I give you
No.
that,
No.
when I sling that life raft out to you, because listen, I've had mentors when I was at a dysfunctional state, they wouldn't even pick up the
Hmm.
phone, bro. They wouldn't even pick up the
I
phone
hear
and
you.
answer my phone call.
Yeah. I hear you.
They you
Wow.
know what I mean? So,
That's heavy.
so they was like, did you do what I asked you to do? No.
I can't help
So
you.
that let me know in my learning, I had a dysfunctional way of going about learning because they was building me to be something greater than what I
Right.
was going through. But at the time, I was too much reacting to life. I was sitting out there still
Right.
kind of want to kind of play with life still versus
Right.
buckling down and getting serious with it. So I had mentors that they ain't play no game. So they could see
No.
the dysfunction in me because of
Right.
the way that they would talk to me in a the gifts that they would give me, the knowledge that they would sit down and share with me. When I say gifts, I'm talking about knowledge with the gifts. I'm not talking
Right.
about
Right.
monetary knowledge. I'm talking about either
Right.
books that they would give me physically, or they would tell me what books that I would go get, or they would give me information that would better myself. That's what they
Right.
did.
Right. Right.
So,
And
that's the thing about being able to understand dysfunction as a system. Because
right.
you don't wake up in the morning and say you're going to be dysfunctional. You just
No.
start to think a certain way. And a lot of dysfunction that we have comes from a very simple thing, what I call cycle behavior.
There you go.
We give that same cycle of behavior, we teach it. And a lot of times
Right.
as parents, you would teach something to a child, and then you'll say, I wonder where they get that from you.
You helped that
The-
along.
you first teacher. And I say
That's
that
it.
because even for myself, even though that wasn't in my daughter's life from when they were children,
Right.
when I came back into their lives, I now can see what they picked. So,
Got that from
they
somewhere.
got that one
Exactly.
from me.
Exactly.
Yeah, they got that one
Right.
from me.
Right.
Ah, my bad, y'all. My bad,
Yep.
y'all. You know? So
That's the
it was
DNA, right?
everything. Yeah. So
Mhm.
what is it that as parents, guardians, to teach a level of psycho behavior that cause dysfunctional choices? Could you speak to that?
Oh man, coddling. Coddling is a huge thing. When my kids were little, if they fell, I didn't immediately run to their aid. I let them fall and see whether they're going to get up or not. And nine times out of ten, they got up. If they fell hard enough and drew blood, then yeah, I came to their aid. But if it was not a draw blood situation and they fell, or they tripped over something when they fell, and they're looking around to see if you're going to react. If when
Mm-hmm.
you don't react and you let them get up on their own, that's giving them that their own that that's telling them, hey, figure this out for yourself. You can do it. You
Yes.
have the power to do it. And putting them in every time that you respond to someone, whether they fall or not, or whether they look like they're going to fall. If you're trying to get them before they fall, they'll never learn anything because they know that you're going to be there every time to even catch them before they slip and fall. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
So for my children, the cycle of behavior, and this just recently been dealing with my oldest son the same way. We give him a list of resources for him to check into to make sure that he gets into school and make sure he has what he needs. But the minute he backs off from it, my thing is, hey, I can't do nothing for you. I can't. I can't. I care about what happens to you, but oh, you were there at the place where they were going to give you the answer, but you decided to walk off. Why? I can't do nothing for you.
Mm.
Now you got to figure this out for yourself. And he'll call me a couple days later. "Oh, I'm going through this and I'm going through that. Well, we talked the other day. You had a list of resources for me and your auntie, and we were trying to let you know this is what you can do. But you decided to back up and go another way. You obviously got to figure it out. So we got into a discussion about legacy, what the idea of legacy is, and who we are. And after you're done making your decisions, after we've advised you of something that we know that can put you in a direction that'll make you successful, and you choose to do something different, all we can do is stand back and watch. When you get to a place where you want to have a conversation about it, we're here when you're ready to come back and talk about it. But until then, we're not going to enable a cycle of behavior that brings you back to us every time something happens, or every time you hit your head, or every time you fall, or every time you engage someone that says something that you don't like. That creates tough skin, because the same thing happened for me. I mean, and I tell the story that I hit the ground running. I didn't have nowhere to fall back to. So because I didn't have nowhere to fall back to, I had to get up quick and figure something out rather than just lay there. You know what I'm saying? So in my cycle of behavior, when it came to hustle, it was do whatever you can to make sure you survive for the next day. Until I came to the understanding that, hey, I'm approaching things incorrectly, or I'm in a cycle that's eventually going to end in my demise. So coming out of that mind frame and saying, hey, okay, what contributed to these things that put me in this mind frame? The short-term goals, short-term goals, the idea that life is short-term, or death could happen right around the corner. So I'm going to live life the way that I want to live it until something else happens, or I'm waiting for death, and it may happen in a minute, or may happen in 3 days, and I just got to live life the way I want to live it. I never planned long term. So long term planning was important because it showed had to prove to myself that I wanted to live longer, and I wanted to have something, and I wanted to support a better and a different life. So my concentration was, even with dealing with money, it was like I couldn't depend on pennies. No, I had to start counting large amounts, because if I stuck in the idea of tens and twenties and fifteens and $5 bills, it means absolutely nothing. When you create a threshold that's higher than that, then that's the world that you'll be caught in. And that's what happened for me with finance. It was like nobody in my office was talking short money. We were talking a month, just the bonuses of 10 to 15, $20,000. That's besides our paycheck. So we're talking big. We're talking about big cash. And then later on, it got into the jumbo loans, 150, 200, $300,000, knowing it's going to yield us 50, $60,000 within a month. You know what I'm saying? So those are the things that I had to do. I had to expand my mind frame, and then I had to stop looking at houses in the neighborhood where I knew people were going to burn it down, or if shootings was going to happen, and nobody was going to care about the neighborhood. So I had to start picking properties in an area where people cared about what the neighborhood looked like. So I mean, and it's nothing against the people that I lived with or I was raised with, but they just weren't thinking any further than where they were at the time, and realizing that, hey, death could happen any moment. And that's where I was raised in. You see what I'm saying? So I had to expand from that cycle of thinking to something that said that I deserve greater, and I was going to make sure that greater happened. And so much
Okay.
more when it came to a spiritual, to a spiritual aspect, it opened a threshold that made me realize, man, there's a life that has nothing to do with this piddly, the way the world is, and this piddly any world and the way it is, and the rules that they make, and how they make us feel like we belong or should exist here. You see what I'm saying? So in every change of of thought cycle, there was an elevation, and I'm at a place again. Not that I put myself above anybody, because anyone can go through it. Everyone's gone through it. Anyone's trying to get through it now. But the higher your expectations are for yourself, the 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 more gradually you remove yourself from this cycle of thinking that keeps you in a place that is beneath who you actually are.
Oh yeah. And I'm just piggybacking, man, going in like,
Mhm.
hold on one second. Downley is joining us. Welcome,
Oh,
welcome, welcome back to the platform. Welcome back to the platform.
let's
Downley,
get it.
Divine Time is in the building. Divine Time.
Hey,
So
I've been keeping track. Sorry about that. Had some things I needed to do, but I was making sure I followed up so that way I can jump in. All right. But let's
Mhm.
all
continue
right.
the show, boss. Let's continue the show. No interruptions. Let's
Well,
go.
well, since we came in and you came in at a perfect time, we were just talking about psycho behavior.
Okay.
So you know how everybody we just came off of dysfunctional choices. So
Mm-hmm.
my comment was, in a cycle behavior, and you know that you're being taught a dysfunctional choice. How do we go about changing that narrative of cycle behavior, dysfunctional choice, cycle
Yeah.
behavior? Dysfunctional choices.
I'm gonna use something you taught me a couple weeks back. The word ignorance. When I really sat there and thought about it, because in all honesty, when we're growing up and we're being taught something, we're not being taught that we're being taught something wrong. So that right there is a cycle of ignorance. So it's when you reach a point. I feel like when you reach a point and you understand that, you know what, I'm having a cycle of insanity. And the cycle of insanity is going so far back because your parents might have been doing it. They have taught it to you. You teach it to your children. And eventually somebody's going to break that cycle of insanity and realize, we all have been doing the same thing. So that cycle of ignorance, I see you changed that. I'm like, that cycle of ignorance, ultimately, when somebody stands up and they get called that black sheep and they're able to call it out. But everybody has been so stuck. So to answer that, how do we go about breaking that cycle? Really understanding and understanding, knowing your reality, and realizing, you know what, there is a better way. Like, I'm gonna give a little situation I've been through when I was working in the Marine Corps. I had a lot of staff NCOs who always were like, this is how it's always been. This is how it's going to continue being. They were so used to, this is how we operated. This is how I did it when I was a Lance Corporal, PFC, Corporal, Sergeant, Staff Sergeant, whoop-de-woo. And then now it's like they're like a gunnery sergeant. They think that, okay, this is how we're still going to do it. But yet at the same time, when somebody would bring up a new way of doing it, they would try and shoot it down. But the thing that I loved is officers who ended up going through OCS, Officer Candidate School, they were usually younger, and with them, they would think smarter rather than work harder. So they would always be very receptive of whenever somebody came up with a new idea of how to do things. Because with it, we always say the Marine Corps is constantly, you overcome, improvise, adapt, and overcome. So when it comes down to it, why is it we're not actually governing ourselves on what we say? Instead, we're still doing the same old things repetitively, which is insanity, doing the same things over and over, hoping for a different result. Now, granted, yeah, that result, you were getting the result that you wanted, but there's ways to do things to make it to where you have the same result, but now you're getting the situation done quicker. You are doing it to where there's less casualties. You are doing it to where now you might even make more money. So it's like you still have the same outcome, but it might be better. And with that, why? Woo, I feel it.
Come on with it.
Constantly circling. Some people think that going a straight line will be the quickest route, when in all honesty, being in the now and taking the scenic route might actually do you more good than going straight forward to the goal. We have to understand that trying to navigate around things is not always the best option. Sometimes taking the straight path is good. Sometimes going around is good. Oftentimes, you learn more by doing something different, because you'll be introduced to different situations that you would not have been introduced to if you stayed on the constant path that you were constantly pushing from everybody else telling you to go that way. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. Your past will be your future, because you ain't doing nothing no different.
Exactly.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah.
So a lot of people will sit here and wonder why nothing's changing in their life, because they're not doing anything differently. So how do you expect to have how you expect to have a better or greater outcome if you're doing everything exactly the way you've been doing it? So that cycle behavior, if you grew up in the hood and all you saw was people selling drugs, people going to jail from selling drugs, people dying from getting into things that they probably shouldn't get into, or even from selling drugs, and you decide to sell drugs, what the fuck do you think is going to happen to you?
Check.
So how are you going to break that? If you want your life to have some longevity, what are you going to do differently? Because if you see X, Y, and Z ended with tombstone, 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 and you follow X, Y, and Z, do you think you're going to go to college? So it's just like, at some point, you have to be that individual to break that cycle of behavior. And the best way to do that is take a step back. If I'm not mistaken, I think Mr. Sigma Uno talked about it earlier, when he really started going into self, when he decided to stop looking away from that book and really started to focus on himself. He started understanding, you know what? I could have been doing this a long time ago, but now, hey, Winnie the Pooh says it, often get to where I'm going by leaving where I'm at. And I think I was talking to, I think it was I was talking to one of y'all the other day, and I was like, yo, the only way to get somewhere is by leaving. It doesn't matter if you're late. You'll be on time because you made it. I'd rather be late than never,
right?
So as long as you are progressing towards something, then you already have made a great movement.
Right.
Literally, figuratively and literally speaking. You made a great movement.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
The first move. Yeah, the first move.
And the only thing that I would piggyback on both of you all is add in understanding that the cycle of ignorance is a system that is taught. The cycle behavior is a system that they monetize that's being taught. So what we have to do is we have to approach this through principles and systems, because that's how it's given to us in principle and ideas and principle. Principle, ideas, and systems, excuse me. So that's how it's given to us. So that's how we have to innovate, but we have to take it to a higher level of understand what that principle is about. The innovation of what we are able to do right now in spite of the system, because the system is going down, it's being tore down, and now since it's being tore down, we can understand and we can see those cycle behavior, and we can start to do things to offset those cycle behavior. We can put principles in place. We can put systems in place that can enhance each other, and that way we can break those cycles. That's the only thing that I would add on to what both of you gentlemen said.
Respect.
Sigmuno, anything?
And just to add one more thing, we were talking last night about. Yeah, we were talking about last night how African Americans are the number one number one purchasers of everything in the world. But we live in some of the existences, or some of the poorest existences in this whole country. We're the number one purchasers of everything, but we have the least. Our communities have the least amount of money. But
There's no ownership. We don't own that.
No, we don't own anything that says that this is what it is. This is who we are. We don't own anything that says none of that. So it all goes right back down the toilet. And it's like you're saying, the system is being torn down. But that's one of those things, that whole cycle of behavior, where the whole idea that we spend so much money, build trillions of dollars. We spend
2.2 trillion. 2.2 trillion.
But yet we have nothing solid. We have nothing solid to stand on.
I mean, we as indigenous people, a lot of people still fight for their identity, because they're mixed between being African American, you Hebrew, you're Moor. We know that we Moors. I mean, we know indigenous. We were the first ones here. We understand that. So when you understand that by self, then you begin to act and do things differently. You don't do the same thing that the person that came in and colonized us in a system, colonized us and put us in a system and allow us to be self-destruction upon ourselves. You a bad motherfucker.
That's what I said. I said the same thing.
Impossible. Can I get a shout out to you real quick and read something from a book that you prescribed to me?
Right.
Go ahead. Talk to me.
All right. So from The Awakening, The Natural Genius of Black Children, there's actually something that you just mentioned in there, Mr. Sigmund. I'm going to read it real quick. And I quote, I was reading a very interesting little book called Ethnic Enterprises in America, which compares the economic development of the Chinese, Japanese, and Blacks. And it deals with the issue of why haven't Blacks developed a large or a sizable business class? Why is it that with over $300 billion in consumer dollars, Black people who, if you looked at their income, represent the 9th or 10th richest nation on earth? Why is it that they haven't developed a business class? Why is it that we have Asians running their business communities? Why is it that they have other ethnic groups serving their needs? Why is it that they enrich other people and then beg for jobs? That's an issue you should concern yourselves with. That's an issue at the center of what Black economic education should be about, not the issue of how do you move up in IBM, a wholly different thing. How do we gain control of those billions of dollars that are available to us and use them for our own interests and for our own advancement? But as long as we're in a school trying to learn how to move up in IBM, the Asians is going to move right in and suck every bit of our nickels and dimes out of our pockets and use them to advance their own interests. At the very point blacks are getting the most degrees in business, we're losing in business territory, which tells us that there is something wrong with them. Obviously, these degrees are degrees for servants, which only prepare us to serve the interests of others and not our own. But that is true of any degree. It does not matter what it is, but it must be that way. Do you think the dominant whites are going to prepare us to fully compete with them?
You don't know. That shit is not gonna happen.
When you said that, I was like, hold up, I gotta pull this up real quick. Thank you.
I gotta pull it up. I gotta pull it up.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. So we have to approach this from a place of being system and principle. When we are able to cultivate our youth in principle and system and understand what group economics is, because I think we forgot about group economics.
Right.
Allowing that dollar to come through the neighborhood 9, 10, 11 times. That's why our neighborhoods in the 60s and 70s and the 50s were so powerful. Because we did everything in the neighborhood. Everything was right there in the community. We didn't never go outside of the community for anything. You got your mechanic in the community, you got your cooks in the community, you got your shack in the community, you got your dance club in the community, you got your hair salon, you got everything that you need right there in that community.
Facts.
It's just where they gave us that you can come over and you can do this now. You can drink from the fountain now.
Because we were making too much progress. That was the problem.
Okay.
We made way too much progress.
You want some Kool-Aid?
Say that again.
We have the potential to do
you want some Kool-Aid?
Exactly. And we didn't look what was in the we didn't think about looking at what was in the cup. It's sad because we have the potential to do this. We have the potential to cultivate, and we well again, it's not too late.
It's not that not that we can't. It's really building the community. There are many communities out here right now that are doing marvelous, magnificent things. They are galvanizing people. You have brothers and sisters that, whether it's astrological, whether it's financial literacy, whether it's just spiritual development, you have that's what is if it's just health. There are multiple facets of people right now are doing phenomenal things. It's understanding too with that. You got the 85% what we call the masses. That what they call NPCs, what they call them?
Non-player characters.
NPCs. them people. Then you got them people.
Right.
They don't care to do anything.
But that ties back around to what you started the episode with. And how Mr. Sigmund was talking about how even though he's trying to do things, there's some individuals to where they might not see, they don't comprehend what that goal is, what the dream is. So they might not be on the same page with you. So therefore you have to understand and realize, you know what, everybody is not there for you, or you cannot take everybody with you.
My mentor, Mr. Headley, told me in 2000 and I think it was 2005, 2006. He said to me simply, you better watch what you believe and watch the circle around you. And then you'll know what you need to do.
You have to.
And then I had another mentor, Miss Nicole Kirby. She said to me, you either going to change your friends or you're going to change your friend. Now that one took me about a year to understand. Because I went out and I tried to change my friends in dysfunctional choices. You know what I'm saying? So here I am. Here I am trying to change my friend.
Right.
And a year later, I realized, I met new people. I started traveling. I started doing different things. I called her back and I said, I got it now. I got new friends. She said, exactly. Exactly. So, but that's what I'm saying. Like you coming in when you don't realize that you dysfunctional, when you don't realize that there's an essence of power inside of you that resides, that dwells, that is, that all the time. When you don't
Right.
realize that, then yeah, you would think anything. And I'll tell anybody, 90% of people who think today is thinking from a program and idea, not from a place of presence and understanding.
No, no, you're
Ninety
right.
percent of people.
Yeah, you're right.
When
You're
they
right.
thinking, because if you the next time you walk up to somebody and say, "What you thinking about?" They go, "Huh? What? Huh?
Facts.
I don't
Right.
I don't remember." You
Or
were
either
just in deep
or
thought.
either they're gonna say nothing.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you were just in deep thought. You were just in
Mhm.
deep thought. So yeah,
Right, right.
I
it's
interrupted you from doing something, and you were standing in front of me, so you had to be thinking of something. I mean, even when it comes down to it, when you're looking at something, you're technically thinking because your mind's trying to process what it is that you're looking at. So, I mean, that still is a form of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
yes, totally. And while you processing that, you're processing old memories, old feelings. You're not even dealing with the present. The
Mhm.
present
No.
gives you an ability to adjust, grow, and evolve. The present just
Right.
repeats itself. It's a repetition. That's
Mm.
why again you can have a dysfunctional thought, and then you have a choice to think one thing, and that bitch will take you down a rabbit hole, and you down there all day long,
That's it.
and you
Are,
down a
are
rabbit
you
hole all day.
That's it.
are you
That's it.
familiar? There's a channeler. I can't remember his first name, but it's Bouchard.
Yeah,
Do
I
you know
know
what I'm talking
Bashar.
about?
Years
I
ago, yeah.
listened. I listened to something from him, and he was channeling, and he was saying he was like, "Now I'm not going to quote it, but there's some parts that I can't quote." He said that this body that we're in is not made to think, it's made to experience. So therefore we need to
Hmm.
be experiencing things that are going on. When we decide to sit there and try and think of the past or the present, we are doing a
Bam.
disservice to ourselves because our body is not made for
Right.
that. We are here to experience what is going on, not to think of what's going to happen next or to reminisce on the things that have happened in the past. So the only way to actually experience is to be in the here and the now at this moment in time. And I was just like, damn, bro.
Look,
All the
look,
time.
we're avatar drivers. We are not the body that we live in. We're supposed to get in we're supposed to get in spiritually and give it a direction. We're supposed to type in the location. We're supposed to type in the directions. We're supposed to type in where it's supposed to go. And the body will take us there. That's what's supposed to happen. Right now, we're being led by our legs, hands, arms, and feet, and our emotions. That's what's happening. We are
Five
avatar
senses.
drivers. We are not. we are. We're not the body that we sit in. We're supposed to maintain the integrity of the body that we sit in because it is an avatar. It is a thing that the spirit drives. That's it. We are from a different place. We're not from here. So when we get that in our mind, or we get that under complete control and understand why we're here and what the function of our avatar is, we can navigate better. And then we'll say, okay, type in the coordinates. I mean, you guys seen Pacific Rim, that movie Pacific
Mhm.
Rim.
Yeah.
That's exactly what's happening, but we
Hmm.
don't see it that way because we feel the
The
pain of it.
Goju?
No, we're not, huh? We
The
feel the pain
Gojus?
of it. We feel the pain of where everything that happens because we're trained to feel the pain of it. When we fall and we bleed, we're trained to feel the pain. Oh, why am I bleeding? Oh, it hurts. No, that's your avatar damage. You need to fix that thing and keep it pushing. That's why when people that are fighters hurt themselves, it's like they're separate from their body. They get up and keep moving. And you can snap their leg in half. They still have this ability to feel like, hey, I want to keep going. No, you got to repair that avatar before you keep moving. You see what I'm saying? And that's the dysfunction, or that's the disconnect between us and who we actually are. And I'm still in the process of learning all of this. You see what I'm saying? So attaching myself to this mind frame is something different because there are times that I can see what's going on outside of me, and then I couldn't see my body. So I'm looking around like, what's happening? To the testament of, hey, I run this. I run it. It don't run me. I run it. When we get that together and a full understanding of that, then nothing can really damage us because what is energy? Energy is we are
Currency.
the energy that runs it. So if something happens and this avatar is destroyed, then we're moved from what from one thing to the next thing. We're no longer
Energy
part
never
of this
died.
thing. We just got to go find another. You see what I'm saying? So it's not we're not stuck here, and I think that's the problem with most of us is we believe we're stuck here, and we're so invested in the body that we're in, and we're so temperamental about the body that we're in that we feel like we're stuck and we're counting every movement that we make or every finger that we have, every toes, and how I was stabbed today, and oh, there's my sore, and I'm gonna ail about it for the next 5 or 6 years. No, it's not meant to be that. And again, this thinking is not really taught. I get it. It's not really taught. But children, when I tell you children get this, children get it because they're born with it. It's like I see when I see Zachariah jump from the top of something and he hits the floor and gets up and continues to run, I'm like, yeah, this is for real. It's for real because in his mind, he just he just performed a complete act that nobody else could do but him. And he's right. Nobody else can. He's controlling this avatar. And it's again, we see it in the cartoons, we see it in the movies, we see it everywhere, but we cannot connect to it ourselves because we don't believe we have that power. And that power doesn't exist in us. It does. So it's to remove that feeling that everything happens in my body or they just strung up my body and it's done. No, my spirit was gone before the last breath of the avatar was done. We realized, oh, it's time to abort. Time to abort mission.
Jump ship.
Exactly. No more. No more function in this one. Let's go. Let's move on to the next. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, but yeah,
and just to piggyback on the story that you just said, didn't mean to cut your wisdom right there.
No problem. You
Just to piggyback, Naru, 7 years old, my grandson, parkour, jumping off everything, gonna do everything. He wanna just set up things where he can jump over and jump on. Right.
Right.
He said one time, I knew I was gonna parkour when I was in my mama belly.
What?
This dude done jump. He done fell. He done skinned his knees. He done skinned his hand. He done skinned his arm.
Right.
He's still jumping.
Right.
He's still jumping. He's still creating feats for himself.
Right.
So just to piggyback on what you said, yeah, they don't have no limits. And I say this.
No.
We have to encourage and cultivate whatever talents and skills that they display. Without any limitations. Never tell a child. Hear me, parents and guardians that's coming across and listen to this. Never tell a child what they're not able to do. Always tell a child what they're capable of doing. Give them the vision, give them the encouragement, give them everything that they can use to be the best version of themselves. Never tell a child that they cannot.
I'm gonna say one more thing because I got a prior engagement. But I tell my kids all the time, like they're like, I can't do it. I'm like, yo, never say can't. I was like, because every single time that you say can't, I was like, you're telling yourself that you're not able to do it. I was like, anything is possible as long as you keep working at it. I was like, and my son, he's gotten so good at video games and other things because he keeps on trying. My daughter, I'll give you a little story. Yesterday, I was sitting over here and I was watching them as they were building the little cup tower. And my son was like, he's like, Sissy, let's get it up to 6. And I was like, all right, cool. So I'm watching. And then it fell and it was dropping down to like 1 cup. And then my daughter got upset. My son was like, he's like, oh man. I was like, hey, hold up. I was like, look, it fell down. You still got 1 standing up. I was like, so what's that song you always sing? He's like, I'm still standing better than I've ever been. I was like, there we go. I was like, so look at that. I was like, every time that it falls down, I was like, as long as you have 1 that's still standing, I was like, you can keep on going. I was like, but remember, fail is first attempt in learning. I was like, you can fail as many times as you want because every single time that you fail, I was like, you're learning something new. I was like, so what can you do better next time? So then we end up getting it to where we end up stacking it up to like 8 cups and then end up falling down. And I was like, let's see if we can get it to 9. So we ended up getting it to 9. I'm not gonna lie, it was a little shaky at that point. And I was like, we're gonna wait for mommy to come. I was like, we're gonna wait for mommy to get here, then we can try and do 10, okay? So I was like, man, it was wicked. But it was the fact that the highest they were able to get was 6. And then eventually we ended up getting 7, and we pushed it to 8, then we pushed it to 9. And the thing that I love the most is, for example, there was an individual back in the day, they thought that they would never be able to be able to run a mile faster than 5 minutes. Then one day a person ended up running a 4-minute mile. Ever since that person ran that 4-minute mile, many other people started running miles like 4 minutes or even sometimes a little bit faster. And they were like, what the world? We thought that was impossible. But ultimately what it comes down to is once somebody sees that they can achieve something, then everybody else starts to believe it. And once you believe in something, then now you can actually achieve it. So when it comes down to it, believing that you can do something is the biggest factor to be able to achieve it. So, I mean, I got to jump off, but I got to say, mental fortitude, my guy, there you go. There is no such thing.
That was perfect.
There is no such thing as limitations, because limitations is there to limit you. So once you actually reach the point where you think that you can't go any further and you keep on working, you surpass that, then you realize, you know what? Limitations is nothing but a next goal to reach to get further to your end goal. So, I mean, when it comes down to it, you never should have really an end goal and want to stop there, because once you stop at reaching something, now you have become stagnant. And once you become complacent in something, that's when you start moving backwards. And with that, divine time, I got to bounce, all right? I appreciate you,
love, brother.
I love y'all.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you for stopping by.
I definitely say simplify.
Huh?
Did you say simplify?
I said thank you for stopping by.
Oh, okay.
Look, I'm in no sorority, man. I'm in the sorority of crap. That's what my sorority is.
Hey, all right. Peace, King God. Mr. Sigma.
Peace and light, brother.
Respect.
Peace.
Yeah. So you know, with all that being said, right there, we're just gonna get into the last of the point right here. We're gonna go into mental fortitude. You know what I'm saying? Like you already been talking about tonight of how you had to strengthen yourself and not count a little bit of money, but count big money. So that's a sign of mental fortitude.
Right.
Going through the spirituality that you've gone through and the ups and downs and the rounds and rounds, and for you to be consistent in your growth, that shows a level of mental fortitude.
Right.
What would you share with the folks about what principles, what ideas, what stories, what could you give that will more enhance them, that they can take from a simplistic place and utilize it?
So when we talk about mental fortitude, we're talking about. I'll talk from the position of trauma. When you have gone through, when you've gone through something traumatic, and you're still standing, you have to sit and take toll. And I'll give you an example. So the bounce back from my father passing, understand we were kids when all of this happened. So I was a teenager. My two older sisters were teenagers. The rest of my brothers and sisters were kids. So there were some things. There was a lot of stuff happening. You know, my mother was not in the best headspace. So the expectation was our family reach out and support. Well, again, from the position of adults, we didn't understand what was happening. We didn't understand who was supposed to do what. But as we got older, we started understanding that family is family. Family is supposed to support. When we started talking to people about our situation, and they were like, well, where's your family at? And that came up multiple times. Where's your family at? You guys have family? I remember a situation happened where my mom had to be pulled away from us for a while. So they reached out to family on both sides, my dad's side and my mom's side, and we were rejected on both sides. So we grew up in our mind, we were like, man, I remember us having so many family members and none of them is trying to be supportive. So in the back of my mind, I was like, man, we got to make something happen. I had an ethic of work because I cut grass when I was younger. We, walked around neighborhood cutting people's grass, and we made that type of money. We just made money in order to continue to live. So that was part of my thought pattern. I was like, okay, let's get to this place where I have enough to where I can do something with. I know that's about no apartments, no house, no nothing. All I knew is I know what my credit was. I know none of that. So I had to start figuring out what to do to get to a place where I was considered self sufficient. So I had to begin to build this family that supported solely on us, my brothers and sisters, solely on us because we didn't have anyone else there that accepted the idea that we were going through something. We had one aunt that opened the door and was very supportive to the point to as much as for as much as she could, and then we had to pick it up from there. So my grandmother, before she passed away, she said, "You got to be strong. You got to get up and do something and be supportive because your brothers and sisters are going to need you." So I started building in that capacity. So I had to completely pull out of the mindset that we didn't have anyone or no one was opening their doors, and I had to create doors to open for myself. um, Purchases. My first marriage, there was a house, two houses next door to each other. I purchased the house that belonged to my mother-in-law and the house next door, and then the house across town. And mind you, I was working so fast I couldn't stop and pause to think of anything other than I gotta build because my folks are gonna need me. And that was the basis of the beginning of this infrastructure for our family. Now, again, I have to consider that my brothers and sisters younger than us didn't fully understand what was happening. So their functionality or dysfunction was was them coming in not knowing nothing and then not wanting to listen at all. So we had to create this infrastructure. We had to create a standard, all the rest of the stuff. So there were rules when they came in the door. This is what you're gonna do. We're gonna try to get you back into school, get you positive, to find out what you want in life and all the rest of the stuff, and hopefully build from there. But my brothers had experienced some things growing up that took them in different directions, but we had to begin to build something. We couldn't just sit stagnant and do nothing. So whatever our the magnitude of our thoughts was outside of me leaving Oakland, um, it was something for the moment. So, and it's also something I had to elevate from because that wasn't the best of situations because I was in the place where I was trying to force them to hear what I was saying or force them into a situation where whether they wanted to or not, because I felt like, hey, this is the household that you need for right now. You ain't got nothing else. This is the door open, and then I made some ultimatums that they made choices were based on, and they had to move on. But other than that, I had to build. We had to build from the ground up, and then build with the understanding that no one was coming to help. You see what I'm saying? No one was coming to fix it for us, and no one was coming to help stabilize. We had to do that ourselves. You see what I'm saying? And I have to give respect to those people that were around us that saw what was going on, that weren't our family members, that said, "Hey, look, we're gonna give you an opportunity to do some things. Here's here's some resources you can get, move forward." And I did. Again, we did the best that we could, and that was the beginning of the basis of our mindset. And I know it's my situation is not unique. I know there are other people that have had to raise support and raise their brothers and sisters to the point to where they can't, to the point to where they come to their own, they come into their own. But that was the basis of changing or creating a mental structure um, that was conducive to them until it was time for them to walk off on their own. Um, then I went from that to it was I realized things were rattled so much around me. I had no time to think for myself at all. Period. I made some bad decisions, some wrong choices, and choices based on just me needing to be somewhere. I did all of that, and at the same time, it was like, am I doing what I have to do, or am I doing what I need to do? Am I doing what's going to benefit me later? Am I doing something that is going to just benefit me for now? So again, getting into the place where I started working mortgage and started doing things that were considered upper level when it came to jobs. But when that happened, my mind was still the same. It was still the same as the previous situation. So I couldn't. It wasn't a strong equal footing. It was still this foundation that was based on I'm doing what I got to do, and in this mind of hustle. You see what I'm saying? So to fortify my mentality, I had to sit back and really realize who I was up against, who I was dealing with in the workplace. That I had to be strong in my mind. If I wasn't, I'd let them coax me into to whooping somebody's behind and not only losing my job but going to jail and then fitting stereotypes. So I had to really, I had to really buckle down and make a clear thought and clear understanding of what my mentality was going to be moving forward, so I can call it success. But still, there were so many things that were out of place. It was levels, literally levels. Before I landed on my feet completely, I fell on my face multiple times. And I could tell other people when I started creating my own businesses, I've failed in so many businesses. I failed so many times in business that I know what it is to build one. You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I got to that place as well. And when I finally did get to the point where I understood from one moment to the next what was happening, and then when I thought I was on solid ground, here comes the market crash, the housing market crash, and I was dead spot in the middle of that stuff, and I was like, man, I was building my life on this stuff, and that was my problem. I was building my life on what was happening around me, not what I knew that was going to be a
Mm.
strong foundation. So when that happened, I was like, oh man, the only thing that there was a saving grace for me when all that happened was I determined two things. I determined I was going to go work in community, and I was going to get to a place. I was going to take my money and I was going to do something with it that is going to yield something for legacy and future generations. And when I did that, it took a long time to get where I needed to be with that, and fought for a long time, but it eventually yielded. Um, but again, that was still another level I had to get above. There was another level I had to get beyond that, and because if you fall in love with money, and whatever your mind frame is when you love it, when you grab it and you love it, whatever mind frame you got with it, man, is gonna rule your life. And I could not, I could not let it rule me on the basis of anything monetary, on anything monetary or not monetary, excuse me, anything physical like cars and all the rest of the stuff. I had to literally figure how to pump my brakes and not just go spin wildly in order to just say, hey, I made it, because that wasn't it for me. I was already in the belly of community work, and I realized there's some stuff that needs to happen for our folks that just I need to be mentally ready for. And I had to understand that the industry, nonprofit industry, was just as bad as the for profit or or any of those. Is the worst. You know what I'm saying? So building that, I built up to a level to where I had to pause when it all actually finally did roll out. And it was we have these banking structures that look at you crossways because of the color that you are, and not realizing that it's there for you, but actually at the same time, they're like, you ain't supposed to have none of this. So we're gonna take our time and do whatever we gotta do to make sure that you either jump up and run away from this, or you fold up and walk away. We're trying to see what type of person you actually are. So my metal's been tested on all those levels, but at the same time, when it did come time for me to really begin to shift that stuff, my I had already begun the spiritual work, and it was like, man, it's there. Here it is. What do I do with it? And when I tell you I hesitated for a long time before I did anything. It's to the point of now it's like still hesitating because I don't want to make the mistake. When you make that mistake and you fall in love with it, because when you fall in love with it because you just want to live a better life and you want to drive a Bentley, then that therein lies the problem. That's all you're gonna see is Bentleys and houses and strip joints and whatever, and you're gonna feel like you're in a place that they really want you to be because they want to make sure it's all gone before your life is over. Generational wealth is not built in us anymore. Like we were talking about earlier, it's time to begin to build generational wealth. And so the combination of spirituality, understanding community, and loving myself enough and realizing what my avatar is here for, I had to we had to build a we had to fortify this my mentality, and then the people around us to make sure ain't nobody in thinking wayward because the minute that you begin to let someone in and they're not thinking in the same mind frame that you are, then that's when things starts falling down. Claude Anderson, man, I love Claude Anderson because he spoke the truth like no other, and he talked about mandatory manumission. He talked about us selling each other out. He talked about all those things. He talked about us being permanent second class citizens that we didn't make necessary moves to strengthen as a community. All those things, and so. Interacting with him it was when I tell you it was an honor to interact with Dr. Claude Anderson on the phone. It was like, man, this is amazing. He is a master. When I say he's a master economist, it is just it is amazing the things that he
Yeah.
knows. So it made me sit back again. It was like, okay, I'm not trying to be the number one person to buy anything. I'm trying to make sure this spreads out from generation to generation. How do we make sure this works for us as a people? How do we make sure this works for us as a family if necessary? So those things are still in the process. But if all those things that happen to me fortify my mentality to come to a place where I had to make good decisions and make the right decision based on what happens next, and then be patient enough to sit back and realize when you need to, when it's time for the good people to arrive, they will arrive. And I think I
Right.
know that I'm in that place right now. I know I'm in that place. Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, man, that was wonderful right there, bro. I mean, because you took us all the way back. You took us all the way back.
Right. Right.
I'm not gonna go that far back because my mental fortitude when I was young, I didn't have any.
Right.
I
Right.
was I
Gotcha. I
was
hear
caught
you.
in it. I was caught in the ignorance and the dysfunction when I was
Yeah.
young. So I didn't
Right.
have no mental fortitude. My mental
Right.
fortitude came when I entered the entrance of spirituality.
Right.
So I knew I had to make a change mentally because I knew I was living in straight chaos in my mind. I couldn't
Right.
there was no order there at all. It was just straight chaos, straight Armageddon
Right.
all day, all the time.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
So I was like, no, how am I gonna do anything? They said, I'm gonna show you how. So
Mm.
again, I began to terraform my mind. So in this
Mm.
terraforming process, I allowed four snipers around me and I would sit in the middle
Mm.
and I would study.
Mm. Mm.
So in the beginning, all the distraction, all the chaos would come around me, but the snipers be
Mm.
knocking them off. Dot, 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 dot. So,
Woo!
because again, that my mind, I'm talking about what works for my mind. Whoever
Right.
listening, whatever works for your mind, you do it for your mind. But that's
Right.
what I had. I call them
Right.
spiritual snipers. They still around today. They still
Right.
working
Right.
today. You
Right.
know.
Right.
So they started off. They were so close to me. I could have reached out and touched them when I first started
Mm.
studying. The more I got into spirituality, I've learned different things. I read numerous books.
Right.
New Earth Consciousness, Gnostic Bibles, the Kabbalion, and
There
Iceberg
you go. There you
Inheritance, Seed of the
go. There you
Soul,
go. Right.
uh, Reversal Magic,
Mm.
Astrodynamics. I mean, I could sit here
Yeah.
and just name out books at the books at the
Yeah.
books.
Yeah.
But as I was going through all of that, in my mind, the snipers begin to get further away.
There you go.
So
The
then
threat.
I was able to
Yeah.
function, and not being so cramped up when I was studying. I began to relax and be and evolve. So I
Right.
say all of that I end up going to the point where I don't even see my snipers no more. I don't know how far they're out. But I know that any mojo come to do some shit towards me, know that they gonna shoot your ass before you get here.
That's it.
You ain't
That's
got a
it.
motherfucker's hands. Matter of fact, they already sent your motherfucking smell, nigga, in the
There you
east.
go.
Nigga, we
That's it.
smell you about to do some shit, nigga. We gonna pop your ass, nigga. So my mental fortitude came from working out, running. Running was one of my greatest attributes when it comes to mental fortitude.
Mm.
When I began running, it started from running from one end of the block to the other end of the block, one end of the block to the other end of the block, till I can turn and turn to the block. So it's like I
Mm.
went to the end so I can make an L. Once I
Right.
made the L, I know I could come all the way around. But it was
Mm.
weeks and days of running just one aspect was built.
Right.
So then I
Right.
started running anywhere from 2 to 3 miles. Then I started running anywhere from 3 to 5 miles. Then I started just
Right.
running to see how far I could run. So
Right.
one day I ran around about 8 miles.
I'm listening.
And when
Hold
I
on.
so then when I actually ended up stopping to see where I was at, I turned around and I couldn't see my beginning. And I realized that, hey, you know what? You don't have to worry about where you started at, it's where you're going that makes the point. So my mental fortitude came from a place of understanding that no matter where I started at, it's where I'm going was the most important. So running all
Right.
those
Right.
miles, that was huge for me and my
That's
mental
it.
fortitude
That's
because it gave me the understanding the conditioning that I had to have. Again, I'm terraforming my mind. I'm
it.
terraforming my mind to where it's only spiritual principles and conditions can reside.
Mm.
Negativity
Mm.
cannot reside.
That's what's up.
Talking ish about people does not reside.
No.
You know
No.
what I'm saying? Just
No.
treating
Doesn't.
women the way I treated women in my 20s, that does not reside anymore. You know what
No.
I'm saying?
No.
It's like
Right. Right.
it's a whole change of being what's going on. And I remember my daughter Diamond, she said for a long time, something, Dad, what a terraform. I said, keep going till you understand.
Keep
And
going.
I
There you
tell
go.
you, this year she came to me and she broke it all the way down to what
Mm.
terraforming is. And she said,
Mm.
now I get it. I said, yeah, I don't know how to be low.
No.
I don't know.
Right.
I don't
Right.
know.
Right.
I came
Right.
from that. You know what I mean? I
Right.
came from
Right.
depression. I came from thoughts of suicide. I came
Yeah.
from and it's not like I lived a bad and horrible life. That's what I tell people.
Right.
Depression and ideology and belief and feelings and emotion, it doesn't matter where you came from or how much money you have. There's been
Right.
people that have multiple millions of dollars. They kill
Right.
themselves.
Jumping off
What
bridges.
happened?
Yeah. You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not about the money. And I didn't live no horrible life.
Mm.
Emotionally, psychologically, I was taught a lot of ignorance. That's just a fact.
Mm.
And
Right.
if I wouldn't
Right.
taught the ignorance, I wouldn't be the man that I am today. So the ignorance was
Right.
necessary for the mental fortitude
Mm.
that I have today. If it
Right.
wasn't for
Right.
the ignorance, I wouldn't have the mental fortitude. I wouldn't know how to
Right.
keep going. I wouldn't know how to take a fall down and keep it moving.
Right.
So with
Right.
that being said, without all that mental fortitude that we done give to the folks all day long, we talk about this functional, this I'm telling you, man, listen,
See?
when you don't realize you are participating in dysfunctional choices, when you don't
Mm.
realize you can actually decide to do things that cause destruction in your life
Complete
that not
destruction.
only
You're right.
affects you, but actually affects your family life.
That's
From
it. That's it. That's
just
it.
being in a system
Yeah. I
of
agree.
self destruction and psycho behavior where you can teach dysfunctional ideas to your children and your children now cycle that same
Right.
behavior and then they teach it
Right.
to their children and that's why we got a generation of people that are diabetics, high blood pressure,
That's
you know,
it.
that
That's
that
it.
obese because we have cycle of behavior of death
Right.
and we're not looking at the health, how we take care of ourselves mentally, physically,
Right.
emotionally, spiritually.
Right.
And that's what
Right.
we had to get back to. That's what we had to get back to. So,
That's it.
and
That's
that,
it.
what would be your closing remarks for anyone that's on a journey and they're just coming in and realizing, hey, you know what? After watching this episode, I realized I got some dysfunctional choices that I've been making that's not beneficial to me. I realized that I've had some cycle of behavior that I need to adjust or make some changes. What and we realize too what mental fortitude, you do nothing without mental fortitude and will and motive. What's your motive? What's your agenda? What's your will? Why are you
That's
doing
it.
what you're
That's
doing?
it.
So what would
Yeah.
you leave to the family today? What would that be like?
If I were, my closing remarks are this: make sure the changes that you make are for your own reasons, not because somebody
Sure.
told you to, not because that you feel like you have to change because it looks bad to somebody else. Because the choices that you make and the changes that you make are going to be a benefit to your life and your life only initially. The idea that you can reach other people is not for now. The more important idea is to reach yourself and to find out what your abilities and your functionalities are, or to to redefine what your abilities and your functionality is, and what your power is. Because a lot of people don't know what their power is. They feel like
Fact.
they're just walking around in a moment of existence. If you heard anything here, what I want you to remember from all of this is love yourself first.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about
And
love and the basis of intimacy, sex, or anything right now. There's stages to this. There's stages of
yes.
this to opening up and feeling for you, not for nobody else, and not feeling fear for anybody else. We're feeling fear for yourself. If you're that far gone, or if the things that have happened is so messed up in your life that you can't change it, let it go. Let it go, and then sit back and take toll of all that's happened, and make a determination of what you actually can change for you, not for anybody else, not to fix it for nobody else, but to fix it for you. That's the important thing.
Miss Ronnie said, I shade to that. I shade, brother. Blessing, blessing, Queen, blessing, Queen. Glad you joined in, tapped in with us. And I'll say for my
Mhm.
closing remark is just it's really about a self-inventory, self-evaluation. Look at
Right.
what's really going on in your life right now. What habits
Mhm.
do you have? Do the habits that you have, do they enhance your life? Do they give you
Mhm.
opportunity for your life to be better? Do you
Mhm.
can you be realistic with yourself and realize that maybe some of the things that you were taught were actually dysfunctional and that you
Right.
claim this dysfunction as a normal way of living? Can you
Right.
reevaluate some of the things that you believe in life? Can you check your belief system and see that maybe some of your belief that you have? And like I said,
Mhm.
I wrote this statement down last week when I was in meditation, and it said your belief system is your infrastructure to your personal reality. Your belief
Mm.
system is your infrastructure to your personal reality.
Wow,
Now, whether
that's
you
huge.
believe or not believe, or what you think or not
Right.
think, ain't got nothing to do with me. But one thing I
Right.
for sure, your infrastructure is going to show in your personal reality. So when you walk up to me, folks, and you be talking some dumb ass shit, know that your personal reality shows,
There
and
you
I get to
go.
see your infrastructure of the idea and that which you believe. Not to judge
Right.
you, not to
No.
judge you,
No.
to realize who I'm talking to, what level I'm talking on, and how I should approach the situation. My closing
Mhm.
remarks to be authentic to yourself. It's
Mm.
okay. Humble, how they say humble yourself? Humble
Somebody
yourself.
just,
Love
right.
yourself.
Yeah.
It's okay to not know. It's a better journey to evolve and grow.
There
It's
you go.
okay to not
Sure.
know.
Yeah.
Say what's on the
I agree.
inside. Miss Ronnie said, what's on the inside will surely come forth
Forth
and
and be
be
exposed.
exposed. Yes, ma'am.
That's
Yes,
it.
ma'am. You
That's it.
can't bullshit what's on the inside. You
Yeah.
can't play with it. You
You
can't play
can't.
with it. You
It's all
can't
gonna
play
come
with
out.
it it's gonna come out. So if you're trying to BS and trying to be more than you are, you will be shown, you will be exposed. They say this exposure year, 2024. So if you're
That's it.
BSing with spirituality, if you're BSing with your dysfunction, if you're BSing with your change, then hey, maybe you want to be an NPC. You know what I'm saying? Maybe you don't want to
That's
have any choice.
it.
Let somebody play. Yeah, let somebody
Yeah.
play with your life and then do whatever it is that is what you do as an NPC. And with that being said, I thank y'all for another episode of Talk That Crap. Peace, light, and power.
Haters observe and not to support, to discourage. Vision so passionate it's disturbing. Create a rise, always positive surge. Cosmic folks see emerges. Brain of eternal, hands on my time. Impossible prince can God watch you step in the mind. Soul triggers, power holy divine righteousness. Combined with courage, love of essence. Don't let trauma bind and block your blessings when you behind.